Let's be brutally honest right now. That's a big question.
I'm looking for someone who doesn't want to go to base camp, but they want to go to the very top.
Whether it's here, India, New York.
Civilization was born at happy hour.
That's what wins. That's what stands out. That's what people are interested in. That's what I want to know. The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson. Hello and welcome to episode 115 of the Hospopreneurs Podcast. Girish Jhunjhnuwala is the founder of Ovolo Hotels, an international hotel group with 11 designer properties across Australia, Hong Kong, and soon Bali. Steering away from the traditional cookie-cutter approach, each property in the group has its own story, design, and touch. No two Ovolo hotels are truly the same, which presents a unique challenge to the brand and one that I make sure to ask Girish about. The insights he gained in the watch business prior to Ovolo and as a regular hotel guest helped to articulate Girish's desire for a seamless and all-inclusive experience across key customer touchpoints. Hello and welcome to the show, Girish.
Thank you.
Girish, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. I'm very excited to hear more about your story. Obviously, Ovolo Hotels and the Ovolo Group since 2002 has done some incredible things. So I'm really pumped to open the interview with you. As you know, the first question that I ask on this program is a crazy hospitality story or exceptional hospitality experience. Ultimately, I'm looking for what that means to you. Which do you want to take today?
I'm happy to start with a hospitality story.
Yeah, awesome.
And since I'm in the hotels and restaurant space, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you one of each, if that's okay.
Please.
Okay. So let me start with the restaurant part. And this was 2 years back, and I was in New York with my family. And my daughter made a booking and insisted that we go to this restaurant outside of New York. And it's called Blue Hill at Stone Barns. I'm not too sure if you've heard of it, but it's a really nice restaurant. And it's about 30 minutes away from Manhattan. But it was really a fascinating experience. I did not expect too much, but when you get there, it's just a seamless, effortless experience from how the way the cutlery was given to you. They gave you a chef's role, every form of cutlery you can think of, including chopsticks and everything, and said, listen, you know what? There's no fuss. Use whatever you feel like using and whatever makes you comfortable to use. So I just found that whole experience to be very welcoming. Instead of saying, hey, they lay out 10 different things for you to go course by course, you decided to choose what you wanted to. My family and I are vegetarians, and they prepared a 14-course vegetarian meal for us. And what was so interesting about it was they had this in-between courses. They would do different things. They would take you out on a field trip to the farm, and you could actually see where the vegetables were grown and how they went about the process and why it is organic and all of those things. And it was just a brilliant experience. And in between another course, they took us to the bakery and made us try fresh bread out of the oven. So every course was followed by something else. So it's almost like going to a show and you get to eat everything. All requests were just given to you with the certainty and positivity. And there was never a no and it's just so accommodating, and it's just felt really good about it. So I think that was a great experience for me and my family, and just how they prepared everything.
Well, from there, what have you taken away from that you've then applied?
The thing was, the attitude they had. They were very clear. They were very certain about it. There was never a no for you. And they always were very accommodating towards you. And I think that was probably one of the best things I took away from them. And that everything can be made to be a fun experience rather than a boring, typical meal. It was a fun experience. So it was a 3-hour meal, but it was just a surprise at every corner. I mean, there's a surprise everywhere.
Yeah, and you've got a second story as well, Girish.
So this is a hotel story. And I have to say, one of my favorite hotel chains is the Oberoi Hotel Group in India. And 4 or 5 years back, my wife and I landed in Mumbai, and flights landed kind of crazy hours. And by the time we got to the hotel, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I caught a bit of a cold on the flight. And I got to the hotel, and the check-in staff saw that. And a butler came to the room and said, I see you've got a sniffle, and would you like a hot toddy to be brought up to you? And I just said, yeah, sure, why not? And they brought it up, and it was no charge. And throughout my stay for the next 2 or 3 days was just, they knew everything. If my toothpaste was almost over, there was a new toothpaste there for you without charge. And they just took care of everything and knew all the likes and dislikes, how my wife liked green juice every morning when we went down for breakfast. They knew exactly all the ingredients because she just told them once. So every morning is there ready waiting for her. So that whole experience of making it effortless for you, where you don't have to think, and they've thought through everything. I think that was probably one of the best experiences I had.
Wonderful. And obviously you operate in that space as well. Do you have something that you've then taken from that? It sounds like that at the end there, you wrapped it up with that effortlessness that they just had. And through that experience, it was seamless. Your wife just gave them that information once and they just knew it. And that was then used through the whole experience. But it made it really salient from the beginning with that hot toddy that you had.
Yeah.
What have you taken away from that one that then you've used in hotels?
You know what? I think it's just understanding the customer, what the customer likes, what today's customer wants, and understanding and delivering that before you ask for it. Whether is a toothpaste that's almost over, or there's something that they saw missing in your toiletry bag, or whatever it is. For example, if your phone charger cable was left lying around, they would wrap it up and put a little cord around it so that it's neat and tidy. So it's these little effortless things that they provide for you, and they've thought through everything. They understand what today's customer is about. And it just showed that how much into the little details they go into that you don't think about. And that was just a welcoming experience.
You mentioned today's customer. How has that changed in the last 20 years? Obviously, you've been doing things since 2002, your first hospitality project. How have things evolved in those 20 years?
James, firstly, I started a real estate business in 2002. I got into hotels in 2010. So in fact, in October, we celebrate 10 years of hotels. So hotel business has only been 10 years for us. And I think when I say about today's traveler is continuously evolving. And many of times, earlier I would see the hotels were doing things for themselves more than looking at what the customer wanted. And today's, what I'm seeing is especially like what we do, is we are really looking at what the customer is looking out for. And we provide that without them asking, without them knowing. And when they see those little surprises, this is what makes us happy that they've enjoyed the stay and with all the little things we've provided to them.
How do you teach people to identify those things?
That's a good question. To identify, you have to be a guest yourself. You have to have experienced things, or you have to have had things that have irked you or bothered you about hotel stays, and say, you know what, this is something that we're not going to do when we do our hotels, or when we provide a service. This is something that we're not going to do, because it is about the customer, and it's not about how you go out and nickel and dime them for every move or everywhere they look at and just try and get more out of them. We're just providing that extra seamless service that they will remember you by. So you have to be a customer to understand what it is that bothers you, whether it's from the plug points and so on. And this is a lot to do with what my experience has been when I've stayed in different hotels around the world.
So in terms of your team, how do you then get them to see what you're seeing if they haven't had those sorts of experiences staying in hotels?
That's interesting. That was difficult in the beginning. It was not easy. I have a saying that it's a saying by Thomas Edison, and it's one of my favorite sayings, which is vision without execution is hallucination. So you can have a vision, but if there are not people who can execute it for you, then you're just dreaming. You're just in a different world. So having that vision, having people to believe in it and execute it, that's probably important. So I was questioned a lot of times on why I did what I did. And there were many times when I just said, look, listen, guys, if they didn't understand, I said, let's just try it out. If you think this is not going the right way, I'm happy to change it back. When it came, for example, to the free social hour, where people get drinks for free, and they're saying, that's a revenue stream. I said, it is a revenue stream, but it's also how you make a customer feel welcome. And why is it that you go to so many hotels and the GM is never seen? Why can't the guests get to meet this GM? And that's in our hotels, is when the GM has to be present during the social hour so that guests can meet with them, meet with the different members of the team, and they can talk to them and interact with them and understand a little bit more about Ovolo hotels, or where they should go out for a nightcap, or where can they go out for a good meal. Someone's looking for a Chinese restaurant or an Italian restaurant, and you're meeting other guests, you're meeting the GM of the hotel, you're meeting other team members, and this is interaction. And it is this interaction, I think, that becomes more memorable than anything else. That, hey, yes, I got this Italian restaurant from another guest or from one of the team members who told us about this.
You mentioned there about describing why you do what you do to your team and translating that message. I wanted to take a step back to one of the important questions that I ask on this show, which is why do you do what you do? What is that message that you were trying to convey to your team at that time and hopefully still do convey?
James, we started Ovolo Hotels, as I said, 10 years ago. This October is our 10th year anniversary for hotels.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And interestingly, we won't be celebrating it this year because of the current situation. So we said maybe we'll celebrate it next year, 11th year. We started 10 years ago. And I think what used to bother me about hotels when I was traveling throughout the world and when I was in my manufacturing business, when I used to stay in hotels, and about some of the things that used to bother me. And those are the things that became my inspiration, vision, to create a brand to take care of all these things that irked me. When you stayed in the early days when I was traveling and you stay in these hotels, and as I mentioned to you, this nickel and diming, when you walked in and they try and sell you everything from an upgrade or from different things, then you go walk into your room and in the mini bar it's got a price tag on everything. And some of them even come with sensors. So if you move it up for 2 seconds, you charge for it. And I just found that whole experience very unfriendly. I was gone with my family when my kids were little and we'd gone to the United States. We went to one of the hotels. And kids are kids, and they saw all the candies and so on, and they started opening them. There were packets of M&Ms and so on, and the prices on them, $5, $8, $6 for this. And I was like, kids, what is it? You guys opened all this stuff. They're so expensive. And obviously they were disappointed. And I felt that disappointment. I said, this is not how a hotel room should be, where you know what? Everything's got a price tag in a room. You didn't pay for a room in a 7-Eleven or a convenience store. Why does it have to be this way? Everything should be convenient. Everything should be effortless. You should be able to pick up anything in the room and it should be provided for because you've paid for that room, haven't you? This is one of the first things we did was we provided a free minibar. Few other examples, for example, the plug points. Today we all travel with a phone, with an iPad or with a laptop, and you need to charge those things. Now you need to charge your phone by a bedside table, and often enough, the plug point is behind a nightstand and it's usually occupied by the table lamp. So you have to make a choice. Either you charge your phone or use a table lamp. So it was these things that kind of bothered me. And it was not friendly. They did not think about the customer, today's customer, that, hey, you need plug points. So at Ovolo Hotels, we'll always have 2 plug points on each side of the bed. So you can reach it easily. It's not occupied by anyone else. And you can charge 2 devices or more. And your spouse or your partner can have their own as well. So it is just things like this, the Wi-Fi, for example. Even today, most hotels provide free Wi-Fi. But the thing is, if you want to start streaming, then you have to pay the premium service, which costs money. And today it's all about streaming, right? You need videos, you need to be able to do podcasts or whatever it is. You need a good Wi-Fi speed. So at Ovolo Hotels, we said, everybody gets premium service. You can connect up to 5, 6, 7 devices if you want to. No questions asked. There's no limit on number of devices. I spoke to you about the social hour. I think that's a very important feature of Ovolo. We provide a free social hour in all our hotels. Breakfast is included as well. Another thing that I found when I used to travel was the laundry. Sometimes when you use the gym and you got a wet t-shirt and you look at the price of the t-shirt to launder that and it takes 24 hours to get it back, so you can't use it the next day. And it costs more than the cost of the t-shirt was the cost of laundry. And so I said, you know what? Why don't we provide self-laundry in all the hotels? So every Ovolo hotel now has self-laundry, free of charge. You can take down your small clothes and just get them laundered and bring them back and you can use it the next day. So it's just these small things that we did, I think, that kind of defined how Ovolo looks at things. And this is what I found. When I used to travel, you'd have these really cool hotel brands and they were cool and they were designed well and everything, but they didn't provide a cool experience. It was all about them. And I wanted to start a brand that was not only fun and cool and well designed, but most importantly, it connected with the customer emotionally. It connected with the customer. When they walk in through the doors, they have to feel good about themselves. The music has to be good. It has to have the whole effortless approach to it. People where everything's a certainty. There is no ambiguity or no, sir, we can't do this. None of that. There has to be a way around this. And that's what we created. We created a brand that understood this and understood the customer today.
Fantastic. I want to rewind a little bit more with your own business experience, because you came from a background, I understand, with your brother in watches. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, so tell us about how that evolved into property and then hotels.
So when I graduated, I came back to Hong Kong in 1984 and I got straight into the family watch manufacturing business. And we were very lucky. The industry went through a change, and from the mechanical watches, it went into the quartz analog. That whole Swatch era came in, and the fun watches, the colorful watches. So we got right into that. And we were manufacturing in Hong Kong. And in 1988, I decided to venture into China and started my first manufacturing unit in southern China, which is close to Hong Kong. And we did very well with that. We continued to grow. Our main markets were US and Europe. And what we did was we were really OEM watch manufacturers. So we produced people's brands for them. So any fashion brands wanted fashion line in watches, we were the ones to come to. And we were mostly ending up in the discount stores like Walmart, Kmart, Target, and so on. And we did very well. The business was great. And only towards 1995, 96, I started seeing a kind of change of the watch business started becoming commoditized. It got cheaper and cheaper because watches is something that you couldn't add capacity to. If you manufacture laptops or anything like that, you can make it go faster, add more memory. But in a watch, 24 hours is 24 hours. You couldn't make it go faster because that's how time is, and you can add capacity to it. So I said, this is something that's going to get commoditized. And towards the latter part of before the turn of the century, I just found that I was running after my money more than looking after my business. And I just felt that this was a business that is a sunset industry. I had kids by that time and they were all in their teenage years, and I saw them, they were not even wearing watches anymore and so on. And wearing a watch was just not the in thing, or the new generation just didn't believe in watches. Everything was on the mobile phone. So you're in 2000, 2002, people were looking at their mobile phones more. And I decided in 2002 that it's time to exit this business. My brother had moved to Singapore already at that time. And in 2002, I put my hand on my heart and I said, business started by my father. And this is something that I'm going to have to exit because I don't see a future in it. And so I shut down the factory in 2002. I was able to sell it, luckily. And I took all the proceeds from that and bought my first property in Hong Kong, in Central. And got into that and bought my first property. I always want to get into the real estate business. I always found that to be a fascinating business. And I got into that, and it was a serviced office in Arbuthnot Road in Central. And it's a street where I grew up in. I lived my first 18 years on that street, so I knew that area very well. So I picked up this property and I was looking around, and I want to get into the hotel business. But before I got into hotel business, I realized there's a big shortage in serviced apartments. So serviced apartments is like what you have in Australia, like the apartment hotels, like the Quest and so on. Like they're all furnished and you lease them out for a minimum of 30 days. So I got into that business and we did fairly well. In the beginning was a little bit of a struggle and we did fairly well. We did something that was very unique, very different. And after 2003, we never looked back. We just continued acquiring one property after another. And then in 2008, with the GFC that came around, I realized that the people would not have the kind of budgets for the service apartments. And we were charging quite a bit at that time. Most of the contracts were signed by the financial companies that were in Hong Kong. They were signing them on behalf of the employees. So I had a feeling that this was going to change with all the GFC that came around 2008, 2009. So I decided to shift my model and I decided to get into hotels. And I said, let me take it to where I really wanted to go in the first place. So in 2010, we started hotels. And that was our first foray into hotels. We were able to convert some of our properties into hotels because they had a licensing that allowed us to change them to hotels. So we converted them to hotels. So the apartments were cut into two and became 2 bedrooms. And so 2010, we got into the hotel business. In fact, it was October 10th, 2010, we launched.
Yeah, wonderful. And as you said, they're coming up on 10 years that you may celebrate in year 11. Girish, there's obviously a lot that's happened in the past 10 years as well. How many sites do you have now?
We have 4 in Hong Kong and we've got 7 in Australia that are operating. And we've got 1 that is coming up in South Yarra in Melbourne. And we've 1 coming up in Bali. So that would take us to 13 properties.
Yeah, wonderful. In only 10 years too.
Yes, thank you. And out of these 13 properties, one of the differences, what we have done in Ovolo is that we own and operate every single property. So we own all of these properties except for 1 in Canberra. That is a lease. So otherwise, we own every property. And there's a reason why we own the property. And this was a decision I made some time back. And I was advised by my senior management that we have to start looking at management contracts. But there's a difference when you own the property there's a little bit more excitement because you can change things the way you want to, when you want to. You don't have to go and ask the landlord, I kind of want to change a staircase railing, or I want to change the color of the wallpaper or the carpet. And you just go about changing because you own the property. So you're able to move with things at times a lot faster than other hotels can.
Girish, from what I understand is all of your properties are slightly different as well. How do you apply the systems and processes that you want to have across the group and then allow for that individuality?
I don't believe in this cookie cutter method of building hotels where everything has to look the same and have the same beige walls and the walnut desk and the same look lobby. I think that each property can be tailored individually and made to look based on what the area or the location is all about. But the one thing that doesn't change is how we do things at Ovolo. The effortless way of things, that doesn't change. That remains the same. All the inclusions remain the same. But the look and feel does change.
You described that very well at the beginning of the episode, so thank you for that. From what I can hear there, and I want to make that salient too, that the things that you're describing that are the same systems, processes, procedures, they're the things that can take place in any physically different environment as well. From what I'm hearing too, the things that have really driven you in this particular domain can be applied across the board. So it's interesting to hear that's how you've applied that across your business as well. I want to open things into a conversation around the modern traveler. That's something that I've read about your own perspective. What does that modern traveler look like? You've obviously been dealing in service departments and then hotels. What do they want and how are they going to engage differently with hotels in the future?
Let me tell you about what I see for how the travelers evolved today. To me, today the traveler actually did not know what they were really looking for. And when you started providing all those things that they did not know could be made available to them, that's already a surprise to them. And when they start seeing that happen and they feel that, hey, you know what, there are many bars free and this is included and this is included and this is included, that's already a difference to them. Today, I think when you look at the demographic of the people who stay at Ovolo, they're not just the millennials or the 25 to 40-year-old. At Ovolo, we get a cross-section of all of them. So we have a lot of baby boomers staying with us, people who are in the 55 to 70 years old. And these are people who have been staying in the usual chain hotels, which had the cookie-cutter approach, kind of the boring, I shouldn't say boring, but the no surprises, no fun, no kind of the repetition model. You walk into your room and it looks the same. So I often talk about this example is that I could blindfold you, put you in a hotel room, take off your blindfold and ask you, guess which chain hotel you're in. And the chances are you will not be able to guess because most of them look the same, right? They've got the same walnut desk, the same beige carpet or whatever it is. And I said, why should it be this way? Why can't it be more interesting? So when people come into hotels, they're truly surprised because the music is nice. We also have put our music into a station called Radio Ovolo because people like it so much. So it's available on Spotify and so on. So if you ever want to listen to some cool 80s and 90s song tracks, check out Radio Ovolo. And that's what we're playing in our lobby. And people like it. People relate to it. So that's why you have the baby boomers and the younger generation. And you can see them having a great time in the lobby. And that's what I think all of us, my teams, are just looking to look at these people and saying, hey, you know what? We're doing something right. These guys like it.
How about that, the modern traveler though? And I guess you've been dealing, by the sounds of things, a lot with business people and people who are having longer stays at your properties, I guess, prior with those service departments and then hotels. What does the future look like in terms of how those people will be engaging on a more maybe not transactional customers or transactional front, but you've obviously got competition with this democratized hotel world with Airbnb and other businesses that do similar things. How are people changing the way they interact with hotels?
James, are you referring to this kind of like a post-COVID?
I'm talking maybe 10 years, 5, 10, 15 years into the future.
That's a long way into the future.
It's a while, I know. It's hard to predict. And no one can tell the future. So I'm interested to know what you're seeing.
Well, there's a lot to be covered here. And I think how much is it going to evolve? Look, the hotel room, bed and shower will always be there. That's something that will not change. Is Amazon can be taking over hotels and hotel rooms. Hopefully not. They've taken over just about everything else. So I think that will continue to stay with the OTAs and, of course, the direct bookings. So how the whole booking system works, I think we are hoping that people can start coming to us more directly and booking through us directly, because there is a lot more to offer, a lot more that we can give to them when they come in directly with us. Now, in terms of a post-COVID world, this is one thing that I have not agreed to much with my team, which is the technology. How much technology do you bring into your hotel? This keyless entry and using your mobile phone to open your hotel room door. I am not a big fan of that, because for several reasons. Firstly, I like the interaction when you arrive at the front desk. I think that traditional interaction of the hotel front desk should remain, because you get to know a lot. You get to know about the people. And, why should you just get your key on your phone and you just go straight to your room? We are not providing a commodity service. We are providing a service-oriented business. And you get to know what the specials are from the people. You get to know about, anything else you may want to ask for. So yes, we still provide the key. And I would like to continue to provide that. But there could be an option where you may not want the key. And yes, you could use your phone to enter the room. But I think once you're in your room, all those features continue to apply. And we are one of the first to adapt technology in the room. So we are one of the first to provide the Apple TV. We're one of the first ones to provide Alexa, the voice command, and so on. And I think these are important technologies because it helps make the customer's life effortless, where you can stream from your phone or your laptop or your tablet straight onto the TV and watch your favorite TV shows where you left them off. And you can be able to do that in the comfort of your hotel room. And even with Alexa, now you can turn the lights on and off, or you can just ask Alexa to play whatever music. So this is the kind of technology I don't mind adapting. And this has been evolving and will continue to evolve. And this is something that will continue to adapt into the rooms to make the guest life effortless and comfortable. So I see that to continue, because content will continue to get provided, and how you carry it and how you can use it in your room. So we'll continue with all of those things. And at the end of the day, what is provided in a room is really for the guests to use at their convenience. And we continue to do that. But everything else besides that, I've thought long and hard, and how the restaurants will evolve when they come to dine in our restaurants. What kind of food will we be preparing? And one of the things that I've been talking to my team is, how can we become more sustainable in terms of our delivery, in terms of what we do? So we're looking at rooftop farming in all our hotels, where we can grow our own vegetables and so on, that we can use into our kitchens, and whatever's extra we can give them to guests to take back home, or provide them to local communities. So I think it's more towards this, using less single plastic. We stopped using those little bottles that are in the bathrooms, and we provide a beautiful hand pump where you don't have to, the single plastic is minimized as much as possible. So I think it's going towards more into this area.
Fantastic. Girish, there's a bit in there that I'd like to discuss. I'm going to go down one particular road there, which is that ultimately the experience with your customers, it sounds like you want to provide for any experience that they really want, and outside of check-in, stay and check out, to give them that freedom and flexibility within their stay. And hearing your answer there as well just before around how there's that check-in process for you is also a non-negotiable, that you want guests to come in and check in, and you also have that sort of discovery from the concierge or whoever does the check-in at the check-in desk there to be able to actually draw information about the guest for their stay. What other non-negotiables do you have for that guest experience?
Oh, that's a good question. No, besides the check-in process, there's something that I always talk to my people about, which is that technology, just for the sake of technology, is not something that we should be looking at. Technology that's important to our customer is what I care about.
Have you seen any technology that's come in that you think is going to revolutionize things, that you think can actually make the customer experience better?
I think besides the in-room, as I've spoken about with the Alexa and the streaming content and so on, I do not see anything as such right now in terms of what's going to make the customer's life more effortless or even have a better experience for them. Human approach, I think, cannot be replicated.
Yeah, by technology. And that point is made by a lot of operators. And so it's been fascinating hearing different perspectives from guests of mine, some who deal more in technology, some who deal less. And it's really interesting that sort of tug of war happens consistently. It's constantly, right? Girish, I'm interested to know what you're experiencing at the moment as a point of friction. What's something that you want to change that you're struggling to get across the line or for people to see?
To me, the journey starts for Ovolo, the journey starts from the time when you start looking into the hotel. And when you can come visit the website and you can see everything that's there, the offering, the restaurants, the experiences, the different things you can do. And a lot of our businesses now, of course, the OTAs are very strong in this, and a big part of our business goes through the OTAs. Sadly, we are representing the OTA channels with a thumbnail. And I find that very non-representative of the brand, because the big thing that sells through the OTAs, which is the online travel agent, is just the price point. And we are not just about price. For us, it's about the experience. And to be represented by a thumbnail, I feel is not a true representation of who we really are. So I really wish that I think that customers could visit us through our website to understand how the process works, how the whole booking experience and so on, and how we follow through on that. And that you don't get through an online travel agent.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Girish. Girish, how have you found that the market has changed with the coronavirus, and how have you adapted your operations?
So it's been different for all our cities. Hong Kong has been very different from Australia. And let me tell you just a little bit about Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, we completely rely on international travelers, being a small city. With international travel grinding to a halt, clearly affected our business to a great extent. And we tried to get as creative as we could. And for us in Hong Kong, it's not just been the COVID that's been going on since February for us. It's been going on for us since July last year with the social unrest. So we've been going through this hit in Hong Kong since July of last year with the social unrest. And then following right after that was the COVID. So we've been through the whole ups and downs in Hong Kong in the last 1 year. So I think the COVID really put the grind to the international traveler. And we shifted gears during the social unrest where we allowed 100% cancellation, no penalties. And that kind of carried through. And that was a very big change for us here in Hong Kong. And it gave the customer a lot of freedom in making bookings so they could change as they wanted. Australia is a bit of a different story. Australia, you have had the domestic business between the states. And of course, there have been different state closures and so on. And that has affected us quite a bit as well. But our business picked up very well. And when the lockdowns kind of eased and business shot back up, we went straight back up to the 40s, 50, 60%. Weekends were always full with the staycationers. So that was a big improvement for us. But of course, now with the new recent lockdown, again, with Victoria being locked down, that has hampered business across all our hotels in all the states. So it has been a difficult period. And we try and be as creative as we can. We have had the restaurant in room experience where restaurants are shut, but you can still book a room for a meal. So you can have a private meal in a restaurant, and we take care of that. We've come out different quarantine packages in Hong Kong, for example. You know how people are quarantined for 14 days, right? When they come back to the country. So in Hong Kong, we've picked up a lot of press on this because what we decided was, hey, just because you have to quarantine doesn't mean you can't be treated like a normal human being or can't be treated like a guest of the hotel, because by the time you come to the hotel, you've been tested negative twice. You don't have the infection. So we treat all our quarantine passengers in the same way. You can still get your barista coffee. We can place an order for barista coffee every morning. You get the social happy hour every day. You get the fitness stuff, the yoga mats and everything and so on. So we treat you well. And people still come up and still deliver. We'll still make the room for you every day and so on. You still get the experience of the Ovolo experience. And you're stuck in your room for 14 days because you can't leave. So we continue trying to find ways on how we can evolve our service until we totally come out of the COVID situation.
Fantastic. Girish, I just have one last question for you today, and that's, who would you like to hear on the show?
Justin Hems. I'd love to hear him speak about how, if he's not been on the show, I'd love to hear him speak about the business and how it's affected him.
Not yet. I think you might be the 6th or 7th person who's said Justin's name. I'd love to have a chat with Justin. Hopefully Justin will be on sometime. We haven't met yet, so who knows?
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today, Girish. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, James.
This program is hosted by James Henderson, with technical production by Jake Olver. Voiceovers were by Angus Brennan and Shim Phelan. Thanks to our distribution team, led by Stephanie Holland, and a special thanks to you for tuning in every week. This program was produced by H Media. We'll see you soon.